All right, guys, welcome back to the shack. And tonight we're going to be discussing the WeCreat 40 watt that was just recently released. And after trying out the first WeCreat machine, wasn't a bad machine, especially for beginners, but for someone like myself that likes Lightburn and enjoys the extra things that Lightburn brings to the table, it just wasn't quite for me. So when they asked me to try out the new 40 watt, tried it out, and there was still a few things that needed tweaking, such as a Lightburn camera. The camera that's in it wouldn't work with Lightburn. So I took it upon myself to correct the issue and see if I couldn't make this machine even better. And so that's what we're going to be doing today. I'm going to be showing you the process, the parts, and how I went about putting a Lightburn camera in the WeCreat 40 watt and actually getting really good results from it. So stick around if that's something you're into, and we'll be right back. All right, guys, so for this procedure, I just want to go ahead and let you know, I've come up with a way of doing it. I did not want to modify, drill, grind, cut, or do anything to the machine that would or could potentially cause problems. So the process that I'm using, although it may not quite look factory, I got it to looking pretty good with just a few simple items. So before we get started, I want to go ahead and show you what you're going to need if you decide to do it this way. And there's a file that I built for the little box that I used, and I will be putting that in the Etsy shop. So if you want to help support, the production and the R&D that went into this, you can go pick that thing up. Or if you just want to make your own, you can do it. I'll show you how I made this one. So the first thing you're going to need, of course, is a camera. And this is the camera that I'm using, and I will drop a link down below. This camera I use in all of my other enclosures. This is actually the 6th one of these that is in operation in my shop today. It's about 60 bucks on Amazon. It's a little more expensive than some cameras, but it's a lot cheaper than the ones that you get from the companies themselves, like some of the brand specific cameras. The only hang up is this is a board camera. It does not come with a mount, but that's where my file comes into play. And all you got to have for that, guys, is a little bit of acrylic. Now, you'll notice with mine, I used the orange acrylic because I wanted it to match the cover. I wanted it to kind of blend in with the cover back there. And orange is fine if you have a CO2. Or if you can figure out how to cut it cleanly with a diode, then be my guest. But my recommendation, if you do not have a CO2, is use 3mm black acrylic. You can cut this stuff with most diode lasers and just cut the box out. You assemble it using, basically, if your kerf is set correctly, it snaps together and doesn't require anything as far as glue or anything like that. But if your kerf's a little off or, whatever, you can use some CA glue. This is what I use. I did not have to use it on this build. Everything was so fine and it fit just right that even the camera kind of snaps in place and does not move even after opening and closing the door. If you do, however, have problems with the camera trying to move, you can always just put a little dot of super glue on two ends of it. Not enough to really seriously secure it, but just enough to kind of weld it there until so it doesn't move. So CA glue would be another option, not required, but option. The third thing that I needed was some of this adhesive from 3M. This is basically a double-sided tape, but it's really, really strong. This stuff is made for putting some of the decals and stuff on automobiles and that type of thing. So it doesn't really like to come loose, and that's why I chose it for this application. So I'm going to walk over here and just show you, now that I've showed you what I used, show you how I went about putting it on the machine, as well as using it in Lightburn, and just kind of showing you the process that you're going to need to go through and some tips on using this camera with this machine. So let's move over to it. Okay, so I powered the machine down because the lights were a little much on the camera. But as you can see, the box, once you get the box built, you get the camera mounted inside there. You snap it together. If you have to glue it, you can glue it. Now, there's a couple things you're going to want to make sure of before you attach it to the top. Is you're going to want to make sure, and you can do this by just plugging the camera into your computer, orienting the camera so that up is up and down is down, however you want to have it facing. Just make sure it's oriented the right way before you stick it on there. You can, however, pop the box apart, rotate it, But with this acrylic, there is a good chance once you snap it together, it's such a tight fit that trying to take it apart, you will crack the acrylic. So I don't recommend doing that if you don't got to. But I used 2 strips of the adhesive that I showed you on the back of it, and basically used this crossbar as an alignment for the edge, and used this camera to center it in the work area, and then just press it against there. And once that stuff gets stuck, it's there. Now, if you decide you want to take this out, or if you decide you want to sell your machine and you want to return it to its original state, you can take this stuff and get your fingernail under there and just kind of roll it off once you've got the camera loose. But you're going to have to be careful. If you do decide to take it loose, you're going to have to just pry it off carefully, not to break anything underneath there. But hopefully you won't. Hopefully once you get it on here, you're going to love it and you can rock on with it. Now, I couldn't find a really good way of doing the cable management, but luckily when WeCreat built the machine, they did leave this little black kind of backer around the back right here. And so what I've done is I cut myself some little small strips of that 3M adhesive, pushed it up into this corner right here. And what that done is basically just created a real sticky surface so that I could bend this cable up in there and just kind of press it against that, and it's holding. Over time, dust and stuff like that, the other part of the stickiness on there, matter of fact, most of it is already not sticky anymore because I've been running the machine. The smoke's going to stick to it. So the only sticky part will be where the cable is ran. I've got it ran over here and down. And right here in the rear of the back of the machine, I found a good spot to run the cable. There is potential for a pinch, but so far I haven't had a problem with any pinching back here. So that's a good thing. It's got this little rubber piece back there that's kind of like a little boot, and there's plenty of space in here. I am going to try to keep an eye on this just to make sure it doesn't start wearing. If it does, I may need to wrap the cable with something, but so far it has 0 wear on it because of the overlap that they allowed for the lid. The only other thing that I will tell you that you may or may not need, depending on where your computer is, if your computer is directly beside the machine, you're probably in good shape. But in my case, the USB port is over here. So I did have to use a USB extension cable because this camera doesn't come with a really long cable. This is just a standard USB extension cable. It doesn't have to be anything special. I think this one's like 6 foot long. And I'm just left some slack back here in the back. I've kind of got the wire draped over the air exhaust. And so that way when the machine goes up and down, you do not want this tight. You want to leave some slack so that the machine can raise up and go down, and it's not going to cause any pressure on either your cabling here or your USB port. So other than that, guys, that's it. No modifications to the machine whatsoever. Other than when I pull this off, there could be some sticky residue that might need to be removed. I could remove this and return it to its factory state, and nobody would ever know the camera was ever there. So let's get over to the computer, and I'm going to show you how I went about setting it up and just how well it's working. All right, guys, so another little look at the box. This is an extra one that I made. I want to go ahead and point out, this doesn't necessarily have to be used with the WeCreat. You could technically use this with any other machine that had a roof over it, so you could stick that to the roof. You could drill holes in it, put screws in there, or just add some holes to the burn file if you wanted to screw it to the roof of an enclosure. So that's the file. Like I said, I would recommend black acrylic if you do not have a CO2. I cut this on the P2, and so I used the cool orange acrylic. But let's get down into Lightburn, and guys, pay attention if you're going to be running the WeCreat 40 watt in Lightburn. I have found a few hiccups in some of the programming, and I'll be pointing those out to you, and I'll also be saving a copy of my Lightburn config file if you want to download that. Save yourself from having to go through setting this stuff up. So let's drop down into Lightburn, and we'll show you a few tips and some adjustments that need to be made, and we'll go from there. All right, so first off in Lightburn, I want to take the opportunity to point out that the file that you get from WeCreat with the bed size, it doesn't work. All right, if you run the factory size that was in the file they sent me, assuming it's different than this, it's not going to work in Lightburn. I don't know if they just changed some things or what, but I was having some problems with rail strikes, and some of the materials inside the machine were striking the module when I was trying to engrave. My best guess is it's because of this pointer offset that is causing it. And so what I have done to make it run smoothly in Lightburn and not crash anything is I'm running my width at 400 millimeters wide and my height at 270. Now, feel free to experiment with your machine and try other sizes, but if you're having rail strikes or if you see some scratches appearing on the front of your module and hear a grinding in the front left corner, just know that Clack told you so, because the work area did not work with mine, and I've checked to make sure everything was squared and true. It is. It was just a problem with the work area. So you're going to want to change that before you go to installing this Lightburn camera, or at least that's my recommendation. Do what you will. But other than that, like I said, I'll export this and have you guys be able to download it if you want. So, but anyway, back to what we started for, the camera. As many of you know, I have videos on calibrating cameras. I'm not going to go into that real in depth. I recommend doing the calibrate camera lens first, go all the way to finish on that, and then do the calibrate camera alignment. Sometimes there can be a hiccup in Lightburn, and it'll make you start all over, and it's a little frustrating. We'll tell you, with this machine, with this camera, the calibration process can be a little tricky. One thing that I did figure out is if you'll take some painter's tape and put over those really bright LED lights, it makes it work a little better. If you find that when you click one of the captures that you get a bad reading, just keep clicking it. For some reason, it wanted to be a little finicky, so some of my next steps had to be clicked several times. But I made it through the calibration of the lens, and then the camera calibrate camera alignment went really well. And I just recalibrated it because I had changed the work area since my earlier calibration to keep those strikes down. I just want to show you the results. So as you can see over here, I am running no adjustments as far as the X and Y shift. If you do calibrate your camera, and let's say you find that your camera is not entirely accurate, and the way you would do that would be to run a cut, look at the line that you had as far as your graphic, and then go over here and you can turn that line off. If there's any misalignment right there, you can actually go over to the camera control and you can move your camera view up or down or left or right. And once you've got it where it needs to be, which mine's 0 zeros, make sure you hit the save settings button right here, and it will remember those settings anytime you open Lightburn and it uses this camera. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to take this little circle here. I'm just going to move it down here to the bottom. I'm going to send that cut out. And you can actually watch the machine in the little window over here. So we're going to run that out there and just make that mark. I've just got that set to just do a little score so that we can just kind of test the accuracy of the camera and show you what it does. So the way that I'm going to test the accuracy is to update the overlay. And once I update that overlay, you can see it's very close, okay? You could sit here all day and play whack-a-mole and try to get this perfect. And when you move to a different part of the work area, it may vary a little bit more. So what I've done is, if you see this little faint line right here, what I've did is before I did my camera calibration, I ran this little faint line just to show me where the true work area is on this machine. So we're going to move this little thing down here in the bottom left corner of the work area. I'm going to send it out there and we'll check the camera. Most cameras in Lightburn, the further from the center of the work area you get, the more deviation you're going to get. These fisheye cameras do a pretty good job of hanging on to their accuracy if you calibrate them properly. So if you hear people saying that this camera doesn't work and blah, 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 it's probably because they didn't take the time to calibrate it properly. So we're going to run it through the work area, and you can see the machine's going over to cut that out now. Once it goes over there and makes that mark, I'm going to update the overlay, and you can see it's very close, not 100%. You're never going to get a camera to be 100%. But I'm going to all four corners of the work area with this guy, and you can see I'm getting pretty acceptable results there. So I'm going to update the overlay again. That's very, very close. If you're just trying to maximize your scrap, you can do it with this. We'll use this little guy right here. Or better yet, let's go back over here and let's try to put it on top of that first line that we made. And I'm going to use my arrow keys to try to get it exactly on top of that. Okay, so there we go. It's pretty close. So we'll run that back out there. And all right, I'm going to update the overlay. And you can see I'm getting really consistent results with the camera. And this is a $60 camera, and some folks may say that, you know, 60 bucks for a camera is too much. But guys, this thing is versatile with almost any enclosure, any closure setup that you may run. And you'll see we got a little bit of a deviation there, and you could sit here and mess with these all day long, guys, but you're gonna get that. So that is to be expected. But you got to look how far off is that. So we'll do something a little bigger here. We'll take this circle, and I'll make it 25 millimeters round. That'll give you a little more perspective. We're going to change that over to a cut. I'm running the cut layer at 12 millimeters a second, so we'll send that out there. This will be a little bigger shape, give you a little more idea of what the camera is capable of. The WeCreat does a really good job of cutting. So far, I'm going to be honest with you, the cutting power of the machine to me is better than the engraving power so far from what I've seen. There's your cut, guys, and there's the line, and you can see well within tolerances. So if you're thinking about adding a Lightburn camera to your WeCreat Vision, especially the new 40 watt, I can't guarantee all this with the 20 watt. Did not get to test it, but it's working well with the 40 watt. I can successfully cut, mark, do whatever I want to do within decent tolerances with the camera. That is something that I wanted from this machine. The original machine didn't work with Lightburn. This one seems to be working pretty well. Did have to adjust the work area because there was some crashing going on in there, and I was afraid it was going to tear something up. But by adjusting the work area slightly smaller than what it was from the factory, I've gotten that fixed. And you can see there, guys. I mean, we can sit here and I can do this all day, and I'm going to have fairly decent accuracy all over the work area. So just showing you what I got going here. Like I said, all the links for the parts will be down below that I used, as well as the file for the little box that I made. So if that's something you're interested in, unless you just want to make your own box, and it's not that hard if you're good at blueprinting things out. As you can see, there we go. But it's kind of like whack-a-mole, guys. I can sit here and do this all day long. But it works. I'm happy with it. Now that I've made a few tweaks to the settings in the machine, it's kind of impressing me in Lightburn. All right, so again, guys, if you're going to be running this machine in Lightburn, make those changes to your work area, save yourself some headache. I've went ahead and done all the work for you. I do have several scratches on the front of the module. It was striking the front part of the frame. It was also, when it went from left to right, it was grinding out. So the offset, I believe the offset, for some reason, maybe there's a miscommunication between the controller and the offset settings in Lightburn. Not sure what's causing it, but if you'll decrease your work area size to what I'm using, which is 400 by 270, or just go download the config file that I'm going to link in the description down below and use that to set your machine up in Lightburn, you won't have this problem. This is a working profile, and I'll be exporting it for you guys to use if you choose to. And when you get your machine, like I said, put your piece of material in there, make a square as big as your work area, use that score line as a reference to when you're doing the camera calibration. Just slide that piece of paper up to the edge of that line when you're doing the, the middle, top, bottom, right, left, all the corners, all that good stuff. And then when you run the machine, the second part of the calibration, which is called the calibrate camera alignment, make sure not to go too big with the file. I ran mine at 100% and it worked really well. If you go too big, when you try to frame it or whatever, it's going to grind. This is stuff that I've learned the hard way. But once you get it set up, guys, Lightburn camera works great. I'm going to continue to use the machine more now, especially since I have a camera in it. Doing some testing, and if you run into any troubles, give me a shout. Let me know what you find so that I can check my machine and see if it's a machine wide or maybe it's just a setting that you got. All right, guys. So I hope that was helpful. And if you're like me and found that the new WeCreat, the 40 watt, actually works pretty well with Lightburn. The autofocus, everything else is working really well. The only thing that I think they really dropped the ball on for this machine was they should have went ahead and put 2 cameras in there and just gave us a USB cable to plug into, or either just put a port out here for a male-to-male USB. That would have been nice. But anyway, I have improved upon it. It is now much more usable for me because I do like Lightburn. I do like having the cameras. And as you can see in the video, the camera is pretty spot on. Remember, the only caveat to using a camera with this machine, because the frame does go up and down, the one thing that you're going to want to do before capturing an image of your work area is you're going to want to make sure you focus the machine to the top of your workpiece first and then take the picture. If you have the machine all the way extended and you take the picture, it is not going to be accurate. You're going to want to make sure you focus first, then take the picture in order for the material to be the right distance from the camera. And make sure you get the most accuracy that you can out of the camera. And as with any camera in any machine under any software, one camera is not going to be 100% all of the time, but the results I'm getting with this camera, guys, are very acceptable for what I wanted with it. So it is definitely an upgrade for the machine. And as I said, if you want any of the parts, the file, anything that I use in the video to do this upgrade, check out the description below. I'll have links to all of that. And till next time, guys, be safe and have a good day.